Rev. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., born in 1929, died in 1968, was a pivotal figure in the civil rights movement who became famous in the 1950s and 1960s for his advocacy of nonviolent resistance in the struggle against racism. Descended from a long line of ministries, King was a child prodigy who entered Morehouse College at 15 and was ordained a minister of the Baptist Church 4 years later. As a pastor of the Dexter Avenue Church in Montgomery, Alabama, King earned a reputation as an elegant and committed opponent of intolerance. He was elected president of the Montgomery Improvement Association and led the successful Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 to 1956.
King resident from the Dexter Avenue Church in 1959, founded the Saturday Christian Leadership Conference and organized the village to challenging racism with nonviolent civil disobedience. In 1963, he organized a historical march on Washington, which brought more than 2,000 together to support purpose, civil rights legislation. There he developed his famous I Have a Dream speech. Also in 1963, King wrote letter from a Bahama jail describing not only his quest for justice through nonviolent means, but also his frustration with the mindset of those willing to accept the status quo without question.
Say it loud.
Mohammed Scuddy was born in 1869, died in 1948. An Indian nationalist leader, deeply influenced King's thinking. Faced with racial strife and violence, King advocated nonviolent protest, believing that a noble end did not just about a moral meaning. Just as Gandhi established his country's freedom through a nonviolent revolution, King used peaceful marches and sit-ins to bring attention to discriminate and injustice. In 1964, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts.
Loud, Casey. You're weak, bro.
Dr. King Martin Luther King.
Not ready.
Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, and a career criminal, James Arway, confessed to the killing. King's courage and perseverance continue to inspire and admire all over the world. He is remembered as one of the great American heroes of the 20th century, a man who devoted his life to fostering tolerance and equality on the grounds that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That's right.
Dr. King.
Getting weaker and weaker.
The city of Brooklyn purchased the property of the German American Improvement Company in 1896 and named it the Linton Park. The consolidation of New York City in 1898 caused this all to be in Brooklyn's parklands to be placed under jurisdiction of the city. Soon after King's death, several city leaders proposed renaming the park in honor of Marty Red, civil rights leader. A memo circulated to support the name change. King was described as an outstanding representative of America and an equivalent spokesman for the humanitarian ideals and universal peace and freedom. The property was officially renamed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Park by local law on May 29, 1970. The park contains benches, play equipment, and safety surfacing, and a flagpole with yard and comfort stations, spray shower, swings and tots, basketball and handball courts, a drinking fountain, a grassy play area. In 1997, Mayor Gilligan funded a $95,225 renovation to refurnish the new play equipment and safety surfacing for the park.
I am happy to join with you today in this historic moment of history as the greatest demonstration of freedom in the history of our nation. Amen. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadows we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree is a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been scarred in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyful daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro slave is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the shackles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely isle of poverty and amidst a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself exiled in his own land. So we come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of the Republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note, a note which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Amen. It is obvious today that the Americans have defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this hollow obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the banks of justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in this great nation vault of opportunity of the nation. So we come here to eat, to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come here, this hallowed spot, to remind America of the fierce urgency now. There is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off. or to take the tranquilizing drug of gracefulness. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to raise from the dark and desolate valleys of segregation to the unlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to light our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fair for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. This swelling summer, the Negro legitimate discontent will not pass until there is a vigorous autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but the beginning. Those who hope that the Negro need not to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening. Amen. If the nation returns to business as usual, there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright lights of justice emerges. And that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the sworn threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plains of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must raise to the majestic height of meeting the physical